when you are planning a massive event, there's this underlying expectation of total control. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. You're acting like the ultimate architect of your own perfect little universe.
Right. You pick the exact shade of the napkins, you schedule the caterer down to the minute. I mean, you even curate a playlist with absolute unrelenting precision.
It's like you're building a temporary world where everything obeys your commands. It basically becomes an exercise in extreme micromanagement.
Yeah, exactly.
You view yourself as the director of a live theatrical production, right?
Yeah.
And every vendor, every guest, every piece of decor, they're all just actors hitting their mark on your stage.
But then you step outside, and suddenly you realize you've invited a guest who does not care about your seating chart, does not RSVP,
Yep.
and has absolutely zero respect for your carefully constructed timeline.
Yes, Mother Nature.
She is the ultimate uncontrollable wild card because, I mean, no amount of money, and certainly no amount of sheer willpower, can stop a sudden torrential downpour or, like, a freak heat wave from crashing the party.
No, it really can't.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a comprehensive methodology for handling weather contingencies and building bulletproof backup plans.
And we are moving far beyond simply, crossing our fingers and hoping for sunshine.
Right.
The focus here is on high-level event logistics, specifically how to engineer a system that actually absorbs chaos.
And to do that, our mission today is to explore how to utilize the Weddizer website for top-tier planning and logistics.
Which is such a fantastic resource.
It really is. By tapping directly into the business and logistics section of Weddizer and reading through their incredibly niche guidance articles, you can build a structural safety net for your big day.
Exactly.
And what fascinates me about this approach is how it takes a highly emotional stressor like weather panic and just neutralizes it with cold, hard systems. We are framing this not just as standard wedding planning, but as a literal masterclass in risk management.
Yeah, and to set the baseline for that risk management, it's vital to remember that building a contingency plan is not an act of pessimism.
Oh, totally. People think they're jinxing it.
Right. You aren't manifesting bad weather by preparing for it. What you're actually doing is protecting your financial investment. You're preserving the timeline. And honestly, most importantly, you are guaranteeing the physical safety of your guests.
Which is huge.
It is the architectural foundation that allows you to actually be present and enjoy the event you spent months building.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even start buying umbrellas or, I don't know, renting tents, we have to accurately assess the threat.
Yes, the assessment phase is critical.
We have to move from that vague anxiety of like, oh no, bad weather, to the specific tangible risks associated with your geography and the time of year.
Because weather is entirely too broad a term when you're dealing with supply chains and guest movement.
Right, you need specifics.
Exactly. The source material from Weddizer highlights that location and season are the two primary variables dictating your risk profile. You really have to break the threat down to its physics.
The physics of it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're planning a midsummer event, a stray rain shower is actually the least of your worries. The primary threats there are extreme heat waves and dangerous UV exposure.
Which fundamentally alters human behavior.
Yeah.
You put 200 people in direct sunlight in July, surrounded by asphalt that is radiating heat back up at them.
That's awful.
You are creating a dangerous microclimate. I mean, people passing out during vows is a medical emergency, not just a logistical hiccup.
And then, the calculus flips entirely in the winter.
Oh, for sure.
The risks pivot to snow, freezing rain, or this biting cold wind shear that drops the perceived temperature by 20 degrees. It makes outdoor spaces physically uninhabitable.
And then what about the shoulder seasons, like spring and fall? Because those are so popular.
They are incredibly popular for events, but meteorologically speaking, they carry the highest risk of instability. You're dealing with colliding pressure systems.
Right.
I mean, it could be a balmy 70 degrees at noon, and then a cold front could drop it to freezing by sunset.
So you really need to become an amateur meteorologist.
You really do.
The Weddizer guidance specifically points to utilizing historical weather data for your exact location and bait. Like, you aren't just guessing based on your childhood memories of autumn.
No, absolutely not.
You're looking at what the barometric pressure and precipitation levels have actually done on that exact weekend for the past 10 years. And based on that hard data, you have to look at the real estate of your venue.
Yes.
Actually, I have an analogy for this. Booking a purely outdoor venue without any indoor alternative is like buying a convertible in a rainy city without checking if the roof motor works.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. Sure, it looks incredible on a sunny Tuesday on the dealership lot, but what happens when the sky opens up on your drive home? You're soaked and the leather is ruined.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the smartest way to neutralize that risk from day one is selecting a venue that inherently offers both indoor and outdoor spaces.
Correct.
You're looking for covered verandas, adjacent indoor halls, and flexible footprints.
But let me challenge that premise for a second.
Sure.
If you are specifically dreaming of an immersive, nature-bound aesthetic, let's say a ceremony deep in a redwood forest, doesn't choosing a venue with these built-in corporate banquet halls kind of destroy the vision?
I see what you're saying.
Aren't you compromising the entire soul of the event just to have a safety net?
Well, flexible layouts are not a compromise of the vision. They are the preservation of the momentum.
Okay, interesting.
The primary goal of event logistics is maintaining the flow without a chaotic scramble. Think about the supply chain of your catering.
Oh, that sounds complicated.
It is. If it starts pouring and your backup plan involves moving 200 guests 3 miles down the road to a completely different location, your timeline is totally obliterated.
Like trying to turn an aircraft carrier.
Exactly. The catering staff now has to break down hot boxes, transport food, and reset. The food dies, the temperature drops, the band stops playing, and the energy of the room just evaporates.
Because the logistics of moving people is incredibly slow.
But if the venue has an adjacent indoor space with a flexible layout, the transition becomes a feature of the event, not a failure.
Oh, I see.
Guests simply move to the next room, drinks in hand. The kitchen doesn't have to relocate. The party does not skip a beat.
Wow.
You're preserving the psychological energy of the event, which honestly dictates the guest experience far more than the backdrop ever will.
That reframes it entirely. You are protecting the timeline over the topography.
Exactly.
But what happens if the dream venue simply does not have an indoor hall? Let's say it's a historic botanical garden or, I don't know, a remote coastal cliff.
Then you have to build the shelter yourself.
Which brings us into the heavy engineering of tents and timelines.
Right. If you don't have a building, you have to bring the building with you. And modern event tents are not those flimsy pop-ups you buy at a sporting goods store for a tailgate.
No, definitely not.
They are highly customizable, structurally engineered shelters that require permits, weight calculations, and specific environmental matching.
Because you don't just order a tent. You have to match the architecture of the tent to the specific threat profile we just mapped out.
Exactly the point. If your historical data models point to heavy rain, you need a fully waterproof sailcloth tent with engineered drainage so water doesn't pool on the canopy and collapse the structure.
Makes sense.
But if you're dealing with summer heat waves, a clear top tent is actually a disaster waiting to happen.
Because it acts like a literal greenhouse.
It traps the UV rays and magnifies the heat, turning the inside into an oven.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
It is. For heat, you need a ventilated canopy design that allows hot air to escape. And if wind is the primary threat, especially on those coastal cliffs you mentioned, you're dealing with wind shear.
Right, right.
You must have sturdy engineered sidewalls and water barrel weights or deep staking to prevent the structure from lifting.
It is treating the aesthetic shelter like a temporary fortress.
It really is.
But having the tent on reserve is only half the battle. The logistics hinge on a very specific timeline for making the decision to use it. And I want to look closely at this backup plan timeline because it feels incredibly intense.
Okay, let's look at it.
So 1 week before, monitor weather forecasts, 3 days before, confirm backup arrangements, and then 24 hours before, make the final decision on setup.
Right.
Wait, I have to push back hard on this. Waiting until 24 hours before the first cocktail is poured to make a final call sounds like logistical suicide.
It sounds scary, I know.
If I tell a tent company to build a massive structure 24 hours out, aren't I getting hit with massive rush fees, assuming they even have the crew available?
What's fascinating here is that is the exact trap people fall into when they don't understand the sequence of the timeline.
Yeah.
The 24-hour mark is the activation gate, not the procurement gate.
Oh, okay.
Implementing a rigid timeline actually removes the panic and prevents those rush fees.
But how does waiting until the last minute remove panic? I'd be sweating.
Think about the psychology in the contracts. If you don't have set decision gates, you are agonizing over the weather app every single hour for 2 weeks straight.
Oh, totally. Just refreshing constantly.
Exactly. Every time the chance of rain ticks from 30 to 40%, you spin out and start calling vendors in a panic. The timeline creates boundaries. You look 1 week out to get a baseline trend.
Right.
Then the crucial step is the 3-day gate. That is when you confirm the standby arrangements. You've already paid the deposit on the tent weeks ago. You are just confirming with the rental company that the crew is on standby.
So the labor is already allocated.
Yes. And you don't pull the final trigger until 24 hours prior because weather fronts shift. You want the most accurate meteorological data possible before you commit to the indoor layout or erecting the tent walls.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because everyone, from the florist to the lighting tech, knows the decision won't be made until that 24-hour mark, the anxiety in between those gates drops to zero. Nobody's asking questions on day 4.
See, this is exactly where tapping into a platform like Weddizer becomes the central nervous system of the operation.
Absolutely.
If you're utilizing their logistical blueprints from the business section, you use those tools to keep all your vendors aligned without playing a massive game of telephone.
Which is the worst.
You aren't individually texting the caterer and the band while you're trying to get ready. You have a centralized communication protocol that says, we have hit the 24-hour gate, Plan B is activated, and everyone executes their prearranged pivot like a synchronized swim team.
It transforms a moment of potential hysteria into a sterile operational pivot. The emotions are completely removed from the logistics.
So the physical shelter is secured, and the timeline is executed flawlessly, but then the focus has to shift from the engineering to the human element and, the visual aesthetics.
Right, because you can't forget the guests.
How do you prepare your guests and your decor for the environmental shift? Because throwing a waterproof tent over a garden party fundamentally changes the environment.
It changes the lighting, the temperature, the acoustics, everything.
Yeah.
And managing that shift starts with proactive communication. Guests need to be informed about potential weather-related adjustments before they ever pack their bags.
Yeah.
Transparency is the only way to manage expectations.
And utilizing wedding websites, automated email updates, and invitation inserts is brilliant for this. It's really setting the psychological stage.
It is.
If you tell people ahead of time, hey, this is an outdoor autumn event on a coastal bluff, we expect the temperature to drop 20 degrees after sunset, please bring a heavy shawl, you've solved a massive comfort issue before it even begins.
Yeah, exactly.
They're basically dictating weather-appropriate dress codes, like sunglasses for the glare, block heels so they don't sink into wet grass, layers for the cold front.
Proactive communication means your guests arrive feeling equipped and prepared rather than feeling ambushed by the elements.
Right.
But preparing the humans is only one side of it. You must prepare the physical environment to withstand the elements too.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because decor isn't just about looking pretty for photographs.
Not at all.
Under extreme weather, a beautiful, delicate centerpiece suddenly becomes a structural liability. The niche articles on Weddizer heavily emphasize choosing sturdy materials, securing against wind, and picking weather-resistant florals.
It's so important.
Let's talk about heat for a second. A black taper candle melting in 95-degree heat isn't just an ugly centerpiece. It's the liquid dye bleeding into a rented silk table runner that you now own for $400 a pop.
Ouch, yeah. Or consider the wind. If you have tall, top-heavy floral arrangements on thin metal stands, the second a gust of wind hits, those florals act as sails.
Oh, no.
They will blow over onto the dinner plates, shattering glass and totally ruining the meal. You have to design for the reality of the physics, not the fantasy of a mood board.
So true.
You avoid items that melt, you heavily weight the bases of your structures, and you use industrial clips to secure the linens.
It really is treating the decor like an engineering problem. But beyond mitigating the damage to the decor, there's a deep emphasis on anticipating guest comfort. This feels like the true mark of hospitality.
It really is the ultimate hospitality.
For hot weather, it means having high-velocity fans, ice-cold towels, and specifically designed shaded zones ready to go. For cold weather, it means woven baskets of heavy blankets, strategically placed infrared heaters that actually warm the bodies, instead of just the air.
Which is a key distinction.
Yeah, and hot beverages greeting them upon arrival.
This raises an important question of priorities for event planners. When faced with a weather contingency, you have to choose. Which is more important, rigid adherence to the original aesthetic vision or the physiological comfort of the attendees?
It's hard to let go of the vision, though. You fall prey to the endowment effect. You've owned this idea in your head for a year, and abandoning it feels like a failure.
It is psychologically very difficult. But anticipating those raw human needs, like having a fleet of umbrellas and stacks of dry towels waiting at the entrance the exact moment someone steps out of a rainy parking lot.